Hello, thanks for tuning into the Kelly Hill Ross Show, and I'm Kelly Hill Ross. It's football season, and in the fashion industry, it's Fashion Week. In keeping up with tradition, I'm highlighting a Baltimore football giant from the 1960s of the Baltimore Colts, John Mackey. And from that era, we are highlighting the accomplishments of his wife, Sylvia Mackey, a past local and international model of that 70s era, along with Ivy Moses. With his appeal and talents as a player for the Baltimore Colts, and her flair for modeling for all the main department stores like Hutzler's and Stewart's and Hochul Combs from that era. Also, she went abroad for the European fashion designers like Halston. Locally, it was Diana Kane, Pauline Brooks, and Patricia Stevens Modeling Agency. So get your cup of coffee, tea, or favorite beverage, and sit down and relax and enjoy the show.
Don, the last time we talked to you, you were a fullback, and I guess you're glad to be back home.
You're right, Jack. I know what I'm doing at tight end, and it really makes me feel good to be back at tight end because I know how to read the defenses there. I know what I'm doing.
It's a coach's job, of course, really to rate how things are going at this stage of the game, but from a player's point of view, would you say the team's coming along as according to plan?
I think so. I think that the main thing is that we're getting a look at a lot of the young rookies that we have to find out what they can do for us this year. And he has played a lot of people during the exhibition season, and I would imagine that the coaches know more about the personnel than by playing them, you know. And as far as the veterans, he has worked the veterans enough to keep them in good shape. And I think from here on in, we'll be working extra hard to get ready for that big opener.
I wasn't born when Mr. Mackey was playing for the Colts. He was drafted in 1963 to the Colts, and they were winning a lot of games, and a lot of people took notice to who they were, and they won championships. You know, you had players on the team like Johnny Unitas, Jim Parker, Art Donovan, and some of the other greats. And you know, when I was coming up in the early 70s and the 80s, we had the Colts training camp right down the street from our home. We lived in Owings Mills, and we were able to go and see some of these players and meet them and be able to come and talk to them. And you know, and being a fan, sometimes you do your history on a team and you look back at what made them great, who made them great. John Mackey was another one of those ones that you look back and you see that he was a big time baller. I mean, he was playing tight end position. And I mean, the stats that this man had, I mean, it was relevant to some of the stats some of these young players have now.
How did you meet John, and how long were you married?
Okay, we were married 47 and a half years, and we went together for 2.5 before that. So a total of 50 years together and in love. And we met at Syracuse University. I met him walking across it was downtown Syracuse for the university's area, the varsity street. And it was my first year, and I wanted to be in with everything. So I came up early, even for the first football game. And the football players drove down the street in his car. It was John, Ernie Davis, John Brown, and Art Baker. They opened the door to the car and said, "Get in." Well, I knew they were university guys, so I got in. I thought John was the cutest, and he was the one that the driver dropped off first. And I went, like that. But 6 months later, after football season, because he was very determined before he did any socializing to get his football season in, I ran into him on campus again. And I said, "Do any of you guys take out the girls that are on campus?" Because they had a reputation for taking out the girls in the town because we had a curfew. We had to be in at 11 o'clock on the weekends and 9 o'clock during the week. And he just said to me, "Why, do you want a date?" And I thought, why not say yes. So he said he would pick me up the following Saturday and we would go out. And his roommate was Ernie Davis, the first Black Heisman Trophy winner.
I remember Ernie.
And I credit Ernie for for getting us together, because it came down to the date with me, and Ernie told me that John said he didn't have any money, didn't have a car, and didn't have anything to wear. Ernie had a car, money, and an Argyle sweater and something to wear. Told him, you go, don't stand Sylvia up. You go take her out. She's a nice girl. We went to see the movie Where the Boys Are with Connie Francis.
Connie Francis.
Yep. And after that, we went and had a couple of drinks, and I had too much to drink, but he got over that, and he promised me he didn't take advantage of me. And then just automatically, he started picking me up every Saturday night without calling ahead or anything. And it just became John and Sylvia, here they are out on Saturday night, and it led up to marriage. I don't even know if he really asked me to marry him. It was like, it was just assumed. He just said, well, picking me up every Saturday night without calling ahead or anything. And it just became John and Sylvia, here they are out on Saturday night.
What was life like as a football player's wife? I mean, because there was so much.
Fabulous.
Yeah, since I don't know anything else in my life, it was and is fabulous. I just think, like Ivy said, we were, invited to a lot of different events, and it was just, I knew what it was about, but I also know that there were people chasing football players who didn't have good intentions for business opportunities. And I seem to have been able to spot those as soon as they popped on the scene. People who want to get into their circle to meet a lot of other people with a lot of money to help them finance their own projects. But the social life was great. What can I say? John was an entrepreneur, so he did several different things.
Right.
And I was working, when I got to LA, I was working a lot. And that's when I started going to Europe in my late 30s. And they thought I was 22. So I let it stay like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, with us both working, everything was fine. Love California. And I moved back to Baltimore after he was diagnosed with dementia.
Which leads me into my next question. How did you know that he was having problems?
He began to act very strange in his, how should I put it? He started wearing the same clothing every day. He started lying about taking a shower. One day, I found out that he had not been paying a car note on a new car that he bought. And one day I went outside, the car was gone, and I found out it had been repossessed. Now, we don't live like that. That doesn't happen in my family.
Okay.
And he came inside and he called a friend and said, and told the friend he had just donated his car to charity. Then I knew something was really wrong. Yeah. But you don't want to face it at first. You're in denial. And even when a neighbor told me, I think John is slipping into Alzheimer's, I didn't know what Alzheimer's was, but I knew it wasn't good. And I knew it was about memory. And I was angry that the neighbor said that because I thought, I didn't know what to think or where to turn, like, so what if you think that, then what? Anyway, Jack Kemp, Dole, right. We were really good friends with him, and he called me one day and he said, I think John has a problem and that it's neurological. And I said, well, what makes you think that? Well, he said, I've kind of been thinking it all along, but John was with Jack at a luncheon where there was a famous movie star that they were honoring, and they called on John to say something, and John told a really inappropriate joke at this, which is typical, I found out, of people with frontal temporal dementia. And Jack said, I think we ought to have him tested. Well, I didn't believe that. I let that go. And finally, I just thought, John is being weird. He's being a jerk. He's just not himself. Maybe he needs a job. So one day I'm looking in the LA Times employment section. I don't know if they have employment sections anymore. And I was looking for a job for John, and there was an ad for United Airlines flight attendants and they wanted bilingual flight attendants. And I thought, oh, great, because my second language, I speak French, and this is a good time for me to test my language, but also maybe this will show John that you've got to get up off your you-know-what, and you've got to go out and look for a job. So finally, after that, they called me to training. I passed the French test. And I thought, well, still in denial, I'm thinking this is a good time for me to be away. Training was in Chicago for 2 months. Let John be alone to think about what he is not doing. And to see that Sylvia's going after work, so maybe I should go after work also. And during that time, when I came home, I found that he was getting worse and worse. And then 9/11 happened. I was furloughed for 90 days, and that gave me time to get him into a doctor to find out what was wrong. The doctor said frontal temporal dementia. With my new computer, I went online and I looked up everything about frontal temporal dementia, and I knew where it was going, and there was no denying it. And I would have to get him away from the environment that he was in for him to have a good quality of life until the end. And I said, I have to move from California. Where else would I go? Baltimore, where they still know him as a football player. He's still loved and revered and can have a good life as long as he's aware of it, as long as possible. And it worked. It was worth it.
And he accepted it without hesitation, the move?
At that point, yes. He was barely thinking rationally about how life works. He had become totally unaware of paying taxes, having a regular job. His conversation was just so general and nothing that made any sense the way he used to make sense.
So do you think his career brought on this illness or the dementia?
Looking back, yes, they can't prove it, but there are too many players with some kind of dementia or neurological conditions. And that's why the league finally recognized that they needed to take care of the players with these neurological diseases, hence the birth of the 88 plan named after John's football number. They thought it was more respectful to give it his number than to call it the John Mackey plan. And I liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. What an honor.
Yes,
You know?
it is. And the NFL is pretty proud of it because it's the only benefit that doesn't require proof of financial need.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on the diagnosis of what you have. And it now covers ALS, Parkinson's, and of course, Alzheimer's and dementia before that.
Because it's all neurological.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
how are
And there were
you?
too many. I just said it wasn't a coincidence. Because how many, the year that John passed away, in the Hall of Fame, they honor the Hall of Famers that had passed away in that year. 5 of the 6 had dementia and were on the 88 plan. So what does that tell you? That's not a coincidence.
So how does that help you? Or how did it help John? What does it do?
It paid for all, because in this country, Kelly and Ivy, in this country, diseases like that can wipe out a family financially until they lose everything. That's the way, unfortunately, our medical system is set up. To take every dime until you have to go to Medicaid or whatever. And I thought, this isn't right.
Right.
And fortunately, this covered all the ball players, where the NFL will take care of all of your expenses for your neurological disease. It had such a ripple effect that some of the grandchildren who thought they were going to have to take care of their grandfather, who had planned not to go to college because they had to stay home to take care of their father or their grandfather, now they can go to college.
Okay.
Now they're not going to lose their homes. Now they're not going to be financially devastated.
So how was life like when towards the end with John?
Um, well, just one story leading up to that. When I brought him back and the Ravens totally embraced the old Colts, and John thought he was still playing sometimes. John got lost at a football game. We were invited to the game, and my daughter and I took him, of course, and he loved the games, and people loved him. They'd be signing autographs, and he loved that and showing off his Super Bowl and Hall of Fame ring. And he got caught up in the crowd, and he got lost after the game was over. And my daughter said, "Oh, Mom, you got to call the police. It's going to be just awful." I said, "No, just give it an hour. We'll call home." And I bet you he answers. We called home in 45 minutes. Now, keep in mind, he'd been with us all day at the game, right? He says, "Where are you guys? I've been home waiting for you all day."
Oh, wow.
So, but if some fan brought him home, he was in Baltimore. He knew his address.
Yes.
There's certain things he remembers: his birthday, his social security number, and his address. He remembered all of those things. And a fan had brought him home. And that was the beauty of being back, one of the beauties of being back in Baltimore.
Yeah, you knew
Right.
somebody.
And as he got worse, we eventually, and you learn the hard way, he would go down to get the mail every day. And our mailbox number was number 19, Johnny Unitas's number.
Oh.
And he remembered the football players' numbers. 89, Gino Marchetti. You could throw a number out and he could tell you what football player had that number. And he went down to get the mail one day after doing it for a couple of years. And one day he didn't come back. He was in a car with a neighbor trying to go to work with him. So they called me and I had to go get him.
Yeah.
And as things get gradually worse, you see what's going to happen. And you know what the end is going to be. But you want to still keep the quality of life as good as possible for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And eventually we could not handle his care at home when incontinence starts, and then he lost his teeth and he has to have his food mashed every day. Pulp, what is it? Ground.
Puree.
Puree.
Great. Yeah.
Oh dear, I couldn't think of that word.
Okay.
Puree. Yeah, thank you. So we did end up putting him in a facility that was right around the corner from us and one of the best in the city at Keswick here in Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were there most of the time because it's 5 minutes from our house. But they did the hardcore care. And I was not home. I was on a trip when he passed away. But the United Airlines called me. I did become a flight attendant, by the way, right? 22 years now. And I came home and we were prepared. Oh, before that was when we met the Chris Nowinski from the Concussion Legacy Foundation. Yes, they were formed to diagnose the ball players' brains, but they can only be diagnosed for CTE after death. Now, let me go back to Chris Nowinski. He called me and told me what his organization was doing. And you would think that I would think this is so strange for somebody to ask me to donate, to sign up and pledge my husband's brain after he passes away for study by the Boston University Medical Center, Dr. Ann McGee. And it took a while for me to really digest what he was saying, but I listened. I don't even remember looking up, is this guy for real? Something about the way he talked, it didn't take that kind of research. But we talked about it for 6 months to a year off and on. And I talked about it with my family. And I actually thought it would be a good idea. That would be John's way of continuing his legacy and helping others by what they would discover that had happened to him, since I did think that football had something to do with it, whether they admitted it or not.
Okay.
And as we became closer and closer to Chris, when it happened, I went through the proper procedures and his brain was donated. And they did discover that in addition to frontal temporal dementia, he did show signs of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Wow.
Common out of 111, 110 football player brains had it.
Oh.
My.
So what are your feelings about football now? Now that you know the rest of the story and you've gone through the fire and you've come out on the other side?
Okay, I'll preface it by saying a couple of wives have totally turned away from it and won't even have it on TV. I don't feel that way about it. I feel that there's danger in every job, but this can be improved. They're aware of it. They're working on it, although not fast enough. I don't think it's a blow against the game of football itself because it is a pastime, America's favorite sport that has done so much good.
How do you get started in the fashion industry?
Oh boy, right here in Baltimore. It was, I don't know who would remember this, but it's okay. The Hilton that's downtown right now is the second Hilton building. The first one was built when John was with the Colts and we were living in Pikesville. And they had an opening, a huge cocktail party where they invited all of the Baltimore Colts and their wives. That same year, Mondawmin Shopping Center was opening. And
Oh,
yeah, the
Pauline
fashion
Brooks.
coordinator of Mondawmin Shopping Center was at the cocktail party. She walks up to me and she says, "You look like a model and I'm doing a show. Would you be in my show?" And while I'm hesitating, my husband is tapping me in the back and whispers over to me, "Tell her yes." Okay. Because he taught me this: never say that you can't or don't want to do something until you do it, and then you know if you like it or you don't. So I said yes. And they had their show at the mall before the mall opened in the center. And all of the fashion coordinators from the big stores, Ivy, you know those stores, Hutzler's, Hochul Cones,
Stewards.
and the Heck Company.
Yeah.
Yes. And they were all on that one corner downtown on
Howard Street. Yep.
All the fashion coordinators were there. And I didn't know it, but I did the show, a nervous wreck, so nervous I couldn't even hear the music when I was walking. But after the show was over and I came outside, all four of the fashion coordinators from those stores were standing outside with a pencil and a piece of paper and said, "Who are you? We want your phone number. We've got this coming up and that coming up." I didn't even really know what they were talking about, just other than, okay, so what do you want me to do? But I guess it's good because you guys all liked my performance in the show and I really enjoyed myself.
You have fun.
Yeah, I said, and if you're talking about, in my head, I'm saying, if they're talking about doing these things again, yes, I want to do it. And thank you, John, for really letting me know this is how I should handle things like this. So they took my phone number and they had shows coming up. They had shows that were in the store, in the department. They had major shows coming up at hotels for different charity groups. They also had print work. They were using the models in the shows for the newspaper ads that came out in the Baltimore Sun. So I couldn't believe the work that they had. Hutzler's, Ivy, do you remember, what was it? They called it Tea Room.
Yes.
And every Wednesday, yep, they would have the ladies who were lunching at Hutzler's. They would have them they would eat lunch from 12 to 2. And we would change 3 or 4 times. 3 or 4 models were hired. And we'd go out one at a time, stop at every table, show them the jewelry we had on, and our Halston or Givenchy or whatever it was, do some turns, take the jackets off and show the purses and everything. And they would be entertained during their lunch, but also enticed to buy these things.
That was the key.
That was another job. Yeah, we loved it. Tea room. What else did we do? Freeze modeling. Yes. Remember freeze modeling or statutory modeling, they would call it, standing in one place, totally frozen as people walked by, and then you'd make a little move and sometimes they'd be startled. So then I realized also somebody told me there was a market in Washington, D.C. So I went over there. Ethel, I forget her name, was the coordinator at Woodward and Lothrop. She asked me to walk. I did my little walk that I loved, and she said, okay. The fitting is here, and the shows that they did with the big production shows with animals and big baskets of flowers and, maybe walking a dog down the ramp. They were just spectacular.
Great props.
Shoreham Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
yep, in Washington. And here, we did some at the ballrooms at the Hilton Hotel. Also, there was a Marriott out in Hunt Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I remember doing the big Halston show. And of course, he came down with some of his models, Pat Cleveland being one of them.
Oh,
and when I saw her walk, I said,
gosh.
I want to be that.
Want that walk.
And I became unafraid to do the little antics that I had always wanted to do all along anyway.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, and it was fun.
Pat Cleveland she owned the runway.
Owned it.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, when she came out with a cigarette and put it out with the shoes, I thought, oh my, on the ramp. Oh my God, and stopped and blowing kisses. And I found I could incorporate some of that as long as she wasn't in the same show I was in, right? And it worked.
You know who was someone who I admired? I just felt she had the sassiest walk, and that was CC Stokes. Do you remember CC?
Yes, I remember CC
yes.
with the big afro.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, she expired she had, I think it was breast cancer.
Oh.
Years ago. And that's still during the Providence show era. She passed.
Oh.
But that woman could walk.
Could walk, yes.
Yeah.
I have a picture of her with me at a Super Bowl because she was my husband's secretary for a while.
Really?
Also. Yes.
Okay.
And we took her to the Super Bowl 5. Oh, I'll never forget it. This picture is just so darling. I'll send it to you, okay?
Okay.
And when we won the game by 3 points in the last 10 seconds, afterwards, everyone was so excited. The newspaper reporters were interviewing everybody. And of course, everybody was somebody's wife, and they got to Cece, and she says, John Mackey's secretary. Oh. Everybody loved it. Yes. She was great and a good friend.
Yeah, she was.
And
she
then
really
Trina
was.
Taylor Brown.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember
we talk
Trina.
every now and then, yes.
Okay. And she's still, is she in Baltimore?
Yeah, she's in Baltimore, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And she and I did a lot of shows together, and we don't know who was first, but we called ourselves one of the two first black models in Baltimore on the major circuit.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
Okay. Thanks.
I had my, do you remember a designer by the name of Butta? He spelled his name B-U-T-T-A. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I had to audition for the Providence show. And he saw me and he selected me, and he said, now I envision my model for the clothes that I've designed with a bald head. I said, no problem. No problem.
Really?
Yeah. So my cousin was a barber at the time, and I asked her to shave my hair. She went spastic. What do you mean, shave your hair? I said, yeah, I'm in a show. You got to shave my hair. She had fits, and she kept, taking a little off at a time. I said, Leonard, please go ahead and shave my head.
Yeah, you wanted it spanking bald.
He wanted the big earrings like Naomi Sims.
Yes.
So he put the big earrings on me. My head was shaved, and I had the look for everything that he designed. And then the next year it was Warburton Pulley. Do you remember Warburton?
No, I don't. What?
Yeah, He was a
I
black.
left in the 70s. When was this?
This was 73, 74.
Yeah, I had just left. Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were two of the newer ones who came on the scene. So were you a part of what is it, Patricia Stevens? Did you do anything
Yes,
with
I did join them at as they came in towards the end of my stay in Baltimore.
Okay.
Didn't they start in like 68 or 69?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was
So I
another
was with
one
her
too.
for a couple of years. She was the
Okay.
first agency here.
What about Patricia Stevens?
She was the one who was the first agent that I know of. I thought
Mhm.
Barbizon was only a school, not an agency.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana Kane was she was my
That's
she was my trainer. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
And she was, I believe, the fashion coordinator of Mondawmin Mall. I couldn't think
Yes,
of her
she
name. I kept wanting to
was.
say Diane.
Yes,
She was at that cocktail party. She's the one that approached me.
Oh, I love Diane.
Yes.
I came to meet Diane through a friend of mine. She was heavy into acting and modeling, and she moved to New York, and she heard that Diana Kane was having an audition, and anybody who auditioned for her, if she accepted them, then they got to attend her school for free. And
That's right.
yep, Diana called me, and I went and auditioned. She accepted me, and she started me in shows. She put me in shows
Yep.
along with what's her name, Marnie Twiggy.
Yes.
GK, you know who I'm talking about,
Yes.
Marnie, but they called her
Her
Twiggy.
name was Nanette Howard.
Yeah,
Called her Marnie. She did a lot of modeling too.
she did. She and I worked with Diana a lot, and then I broke off from Diana and started working with a group called the Ebony Sophisticates,
Oh,
and we worked Baltimore, we worked DC,
okay.
but I got to the point I didn't feel like I was moving. I wasn't doing enough here in Baltimore. It was stagnant. I mean, once the horse was out of the barn, that was it. And so I moved to New York, and I started working with an agency called Pizzazz Modeling Agency.
Oh yeah.
And so he was sending me to New York to do shows, and I started doing a lot of showroom modeling there in New York. He was really hooking me up. So tell me, well, you already told us about the places where you modeled. How has the fashion industry changed?
Well, the style of modeling has definitely changed. They all walk alike now. It's almost like what I call a mannequin parade.
Mm-hmm. I hate it.
Yeah, I do
it's
too.
like marching.
Yeah, for us it was a production, right? That's what got the black models to be so big in Europe. When we came over there with our style, the designers just ate it up. They loved it. Yeah. But now it's and they almost all look alike.
Yes,
the hairdos are all done the same. The makeup is the same.
Mm-hmm.
The most exciting show through the years still came to be was the Victoria's Secret fashion show, because that was finally letting you be yourself. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
They have the Fashion Week in New York.
Yes.
And it's Fashion on the Hudson. And I went there one year. My goddaughter, she models, and so she and her mom and we took her off there, and they had. I didn't realize Baltimore now has so many designers, young black designers, and the fashions are just phenomenal. There's a lot of talent in Baltimore.
Yes. I went to a big show here. I think it was Models Inc.
Oh yes, I've heard. They were at the show. They had some clothes in the show.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They had some fabulous designs. The show was down by it was at the Art Institute. It was at Mecca. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago. And these models, the girls were absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
had
there's
some
a,
10 and 12-year-olds in it too. They were great.
and you know something else, something that I noticed, the the models today, they're younger and they pay them less. They don't they don't get that top dollar like they used to. They can
Hmm.
pay them less now. Like the $1,000 a day or a job. No, they get perhaps maybe 500 for their
I
show.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just look at those models, you will see they're young. They're like 15 and between 15 and 12. I'm not talking about the Naomi Sims. She has earned every dollar that she, but the young ones who are coming along now, they don't make the money that we made.
Oh, okay. Well, the young ones. Okay. But
Mhm.
you and I saw the market gravitate more towards the professional and the more mature or older
Mhm.
woman.
Mhm.
What my agency called, when I got to that category, they called that group Today's Woman. I was with Cunningham in Los
Yes.
Angeles. Right.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
market grew with us because there was a time that when you were 30, you were washed up. I started at 26 and I grew with the market from being the bride into being the mother of the bride in bridal shows. That's tough to take because there's a transition where sometimes they book you as the bride and the next show you might be the mother of the bride. And then you get more and more into being the mother of the bride in the fashion
Well,
shows.
I did transition. Stella's
Mhm.
gowns. She had a shop, and I think she
Uh-huh.
closed it down a couple years ago on Eastern Avenue. I did all mother of the bride
Oh,
gowns.
but you were working, girl.
Yeah, I was
That's
working.
right. But
Yeah,
see, then also the market went to plus size models
sure
and
did.
petite models.
Mhm.
And so the market expanded in its scope of diversity of size and age.
Which was good. That's really
Yes,
good
yes.
because the only
Be-
store that I remember downtown for oversized women was it was right there on the corner
Lane
of
Bryant.
Lane Bryant. You're right,
Yep.
Lane Bryant. And they're still around.
Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
Well,
Yeah,
I think the whole fashion industry has really changed.
it has. It
Yeah.
You
has.
look at the style, the dress, how revealing things are now.
Oh
Hmm.
Some
my
things
God.
that I see, I want to cover my eyes because it's like, are we really wearing that now? And it seems like the public has accepted it. Some things to me, and I guess, well, now I guess I would be considered old fashioned, is that I think is inappropriate.
We're classic. We're classic ladies,
Yes, we're
Right.
and we
classic.
won't take down to what they're doing and wearing today. We just won't.
Hello everyone, today we're going to be viewing 5009 Hamilton. It is a new listing that we're going to be showing you today. As you can welcome to the open foyer, we have the coffered ceilings, the chandelier. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home that we're featuring today. type of room you want. It could be a family room. It could be another additional space for the kids to play when it's raining outside. We have a full bathroom here. It's a beautiful home, beautiful renovation. It won't last. We already have 3 showings scheduled for today, so hurry up. Don't miss out. And thank you for joining us today for this 5009 Arabia Avenue.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or you can go to our website, The Kelly Hill Ross Show, and you can contact us there. You can also email us as well, thekellyhillrossshow@gmail.com. If you have any comments or ideas, let us know. So until the next time, hold on to what you got until you can get what you want. See ya.